I'm going to be sharing with you in this video how to break out of the matrix and stop playing unconscious roles. And I did put in the title, Are You an NPC? And that might sound like a joke, but I never see people as an NPC because I don't like to see people in that way. But I do just want to say that this is a very serious video. And I know maybe it doesn't seem like that because I'm smiling and I'm laughing, but this is serious because the truth is that many people are actually inside of a program, inside of an unconscious program, playing a role like a character, but they didn't actually consciously sign up for that character. They didn't sign up for it. It's like they don't have any free will choice behind that. So there's no freedom in the role that they're playing. I don't think there's anything wrong with playing a role in life. There's nothing wrong with that. But the question is, are you the one that is deciding to play the role? And also, who are you? Who is deciding to play a role? Let's talk about that in this video. So if you're new to this channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to hit that notification bell. Also, to work with me, all the details will be down below. Now, the first thing that I want to share with you is to understand that many are stuck in a program, doing the same thing, like a robot, and they are in the one quality that you'll find in a person that is stuck in the matrix, you could call it, or an unconscious program, or whatever, or some pattern. You could say it in any way that you want, really. You could say it's unconsciousness, or you could say that if you want. There's many different ways to define what it is that I'm communicating here. But the thing is that they are extremely predictable. Now, the problem with this phenomena that is very real, that is the moment that you start pointing fingers and you start noticing and judging somebody for perhaps being in this role or program, you yourself risk getting lost inside of that rabbit hole that perhaps they themselves are lost in. So you risk your life force energy every single time you go into somebody's space, right? Because look, everything is a program, and you're gonna have to program yourself, whether consciously or unconsciously. And again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the program. I'm just saying that, is that process happening on purpose? Is it happening deliberately? Or are you just kind of floating through life and you don't really know what's happening? I don't like to say it in that way because, again, I don't like to judge people. I don't like to point fingers at people. I don't necessarily like to say things in this way. But I've come to realize, like, how else am I going to support people? How else am I going to help people to gain back their sovereignty and then point their life force in the direction that they want? The only way is to bring consciousness to that program. It's to bring consciousness to it. And the way to do that is to play a role consciously for that person, right? And you don't really know if somebody's playing a role consciously or unconsciously. You don't really know. This is why you have to be really, really discerning about what that kind of person is and who they are and what they do. And you gotta read between the lines in terms of how they live and what they say, and you gotta look a little bit deeper. So everything that I'm saying might sound very judgmental, and I'm not pointing fingers here, and I'm not gonna judge anybody here, and I'm not gonna make this video sound like an attack. I'm gonna be sharing with you the knowledge that will help you to break out of, perhaps in your own life, being in some unconscious role. Because look, it's really easy to point fingers out there and be like, oh, this person's unconscious, they're an NPC. But I believe that that's a very egotistical way of seeing people. I don't see people as NPCs. All I've done is put this in the title to make it interesting, but the goal here is to communicate what I have to communicate to allow you to take back your sovereignty, right? So I am not here to point fingers, and I encourage you not to point fingers at it, because the moment that you point fingers, you're yourself becoming entangled in a program. I don't point fingers. I don't like to point fingers. I like to give practical knowledge and advice that is going to help people to become who they want to be. But what I do want to share though is that it's very important to really be conscious in your own life. Are you playing an unconscious role? Not to point fingers. It's very easy to point fingers and say, oh, that person's an ego, that person's unconscious, or whatever. Now, keep in mind, the moment that you project that onto somebody, you are manifesting that person to be that character. Do you want that? Do you want that for yourself? First of all, do you want to be pointing a finger? Second of all, do you want do you want to see that person in that way? Because that's what you're doing when you spawn, when you speak something about somebody, you are spawning that version of them into existence. This is why when I'm in a coaching call with somebody, or if I'm working with a client personally, I never, ever, ever put somebody into a box of who they used to be. I think that's one of the most selfish things that you could possibly do in life, is take your past projections, your past experiences, and see somebody for who they used to be. I would never do that to you. If you ever book a session with me, I will never see you for who you used to be. Every single time I connect with a person, I see them as a brand new person every single time. Every single time. Because that's the most selfless thing that I can do. I refuse to see people for who they used to be. I absolutely refuse. Because if I see somebody for who they used to be, I am spawning a version of them that doesn't help me, and it doesn't help them either, because it's keeping them stuck in the program. So the best way I can help somebody to break out of a program is to show up as a clear channel, is to be completely clear, to have my life force be very high, to have my energy be very high, and to come in there and not see them for who they used to be, and simply be a pointer, be a guide. And that's what I'm here to do for you, is to be a pointer and a guide, to simply point you in the direction of not necessarily questioning and asking yourself questions about who you are, although that can be one way to get started, but eventually, in my experience, it can become redundant to self-inquire. Eventually, you have to simply, instead of trying to understand the matrix and ask questions about the matrix, I found that it simply can be really powerful to embody who I want to be and find out the answer through decision making, through radical decision making. Although questioning can be useful at first, for me it became redundant, but I will ask you a question nonetheless though, because I feel it may be useful for you. And what that leads me to ask you is, what are you? Are you the body? Are you the mind? And I'm not going to get into non-duality here and self-inquiry. That's not why I'm asking. I'm asking you the question, what are you? Are you the body and are you the mind? Not with the intention of necessarily getting you to go and self-contemplate and ask yourself these questions. I'm simply asking right now, you're playing a role, perhaps in your life. Maybe you work a 9-to-5 job. Maybe you're a life coach like me. That's the role that I play sometimes. I play the role of a life coach, right? I'm a life coach. I coach people. I am a life coach, right? That's the role that I play. I am a life coach. Or I make YouTube videos, right? And these kinds of things. But what you got to understand is that it's just a role. It's just a role. It is just simply a role. It's a character that I'm playing. Francis is recording a video right now and playing a role, sharing with you how to break out of the matrix. But what are you even looking at right now? Who are you listening to? Francis. But who is Francis? Who is Francis? And what is he telling you? Is he telling you the truth? How can you trust me? Can you really trust what I'm saying? What if I'm trying to deceive you? How do you know if I'm telling you the truth? How do you really know? Or how do you know? How can you trust me? That's why I'm going to record another video soon on self-trust. Because if you don't trust yourself, it's impossible to trust others. But that's a whole other video for another time. So I'm asking you, what are you? And are you the body and are you the mind? To perhaps point you to the possibility of let's just say you're working a 9-to-5 job or whatever. Did you sign up for that role consciously? There's nothing wrong with a 9-to-5 job. But when you're resting, when you're in your own space, you're setting intentions to be something out in the world. And you are a non-physical being making choices to play roles in the physical. That's the truth of the matter here. That's what you are. You are, here's the truth, a non-physical consciousness choosing to play roles in the physical realm. And this entire process is happening whether on purpose or on accident. Now, some people are so entangled in the physical realm that they forgot who they are. There's no sense of I am playing a role. The role has become who they are. The role has become who they actually are. And there's no sense of individuality. There's no sense of I am me, you are you. It's just they're one with everything. They're just one, and they're one with everything, not in a good sense, because they've lost their sense of individuality. I believe that having your sense of individuality is extremely important. And you would think that that's unconscious, right? You would think that that's egotistical. No, it's not. It's not egotistical, because the only way you can truly support others is to have a sense of individuality and to have boundaries and to really be connected to who you really are and to be conscious of how to navigate the space of the physical realm in a conscious way. And that is really the matrix. The matrix is you can play in the physical, but in a conscious manner without losing yourself in it. To have your conscious beliefs, to have boundaries, to trust yourself, because all these affirmations, let's just say for example, or programs that you're consciously subscribing to, and then you go out and explore the matrix, how much you trust yourself and how in integrity you are is going to dictate if you get lost in the matrix or if you fall out of the matrix. The more you lie to yourself, the more that you lie to others. You got to be honest with yourself about who you decide you are, right? And at some point there's no difference between, really, it's going to sound crazy, between a lie and the truth, because you decide who you are. So what is real, what is unreal? You decide who you are, ultimately speaking. And the more that you consciously decide who you are, that becomes your personal truth. And other people are going to try to convince you why that's not the truth, but you have to have boundaries. You have to be clear in who you are. And again, every single time you connect with another person, you risk losing everything that you said you are. But why do you take that risk? You take that risk because you want to help the so-called other people in this realm. Because if you just have everything for yourself, me, that's great, but who can you share that love with? Who are you going to share it with, right? So what you want to do is, yes, break out of the matrix. Yes, decide on who you are and question who you are, even if that resonates for you. Take back your spiritual power. But then you're going to have to reintegrate yourself back into society in some way. And the question is that process going to be conscious, or is it going to be unconscious? Is it going to be consciously happening, or is it going to be happening on autopilot? Now, in a way, autopilot is inevitable. Like, there's going to be stuff playing out no matter what. But stuff playing out no matter what can happen consciously. Conscious autopilot, right? That's how you reprogram your subconscious mind, or whatever you want to say. I don't like to say it in that way, because everybody says that. It's the same freaking thing everywhere you see on YouTube. Everybody says the exact same thing. I'm trying to say something different here and say something that hasn't been said before. Everybody says the same freaking thing. And I hate to say that because, again, it sounds like I'm projecting, and I am probably in a way. But I want to do something different. Because most people in the spiritual community say the exact same freaking thing. And I want to say something different and interesting. And that is to play a role consciously. Who talks about that? Not many people. Not many people talk about it. And I want more people to talk about it. Maybe I should start saying that more people talk about it, and I'll start manifesting it. But that's the truth of my reality right now, is that a lot of people do not understand, in society at least. There's many people that do understand, and I'm very conscious of that. But the other side of the coin is there's many people that do not understand that you can play a role consciously, on purpose, with integrity, with consciousness, and with the willingness to open up your energy, but still be in that person's space, but be in your space consciously as well. To consciously play a role. Otherwise, you're literally in a dream. You're in a dream. Like, you're dreaming at night and stuff's just happening. You don't know what's happening. You wake up. Like, do you want your life to be like that? Just stuff happening just randomly? That's not how I want my life to be. If we live in an infinite sea of just stuff happening and mind stuff happening, I would want to tap into that consciously, and that's exactly what I'm doing. And I'm here to help you to do that as well. I'm here to help you break out of the matrix. That's what I'm here to do. All right, this is my attempt, at least. Now, what I want to conclude this video with, and this is a deep topic, by the way. I can't just share it in one video. I wish I could, but I could record 5 hours of content on this topic. I could record a 10-hour lecture on this topic. I could do a lot with this topic of how to break out of the matrix and stop playing unconscious roles. Playing a role consciously is something that I could easily whip out a 10-hour video, and that would only scratch the surface. It wouldn't even scratch the surface of how to be a true kid. It would just cover the very bare minimum. But it's not necessarily about how much content you watch, because you might think, oh, he's just saying that so that I watch his content or whatever. No, not necessarily. You could get it right now in 2 seconds. It might take you 10 hours of content. It might take you 10 hours of learning. But at some point, it hits, and you see that there's 2 sides to reality. This is what I've come to realize. And I'm going to share with you 2 things to conclude this video. I'm going to share with you a realization that I've had, and then I'm going to ask you some questions to conclude the video. The realization is that I've come to realize that there's it's kind of hard to explain, but I'll try my best. There's almost like two sides to reality. On the one end, you're a non-physical consciousness, and you are kind of like, if not completely, you're kind of like God. And I don't like to use that word because it can be misconstrued in a lot of ways. It can cause people to disagree with me, and then all these types of things. That's not the last thing I want is to create debate and separation here. I'm trying to say whatever words I can to help you to realize or to embody more of who you want to be in your life. But I realize is that on the one end, you're kind of like a God. You're kind of like God, and you're literally you're setting intentions to be something. You're deciding. You're making decisions. You're deciding who you want to be. Maybe affirmations are part of it. Maybe visualizations are a part of that, right? Maybe visualizations are a part of that, or whatever. And then you go and explore that, and you go to see what that's like, and you go become it, and you go all the way, and you see what it's like. And this whole thing can be happening consciously or unconsciously. Now the thing is that when people have lost touch with pulling the energy back into who they really are, and they again have lost themselves in the physical and the dense physical realms. And I don't want to say dense, I don't like that communication, but because it doesn't have to be seen as dense. But when you're just in the physical, and you keep externalizing your power, external, there's no internal connection to who you are, what happens is that it does become very dense, and you do start judging yourself. And you do start not only judging yourself, but you judge yourself for judging yourself, and then you judge yourself for judging yourself, and then you judge yourself for judging, and there's resistance, and then there's resistance about the resistance, and then it just goes down south, and you go down this downward spiral of negativity and anger and fear and judging and blaming and fighting and war and all these things that I don't believe is necessary. I don't believe it's necessary. If you consciously take control of your life, all these things can be avoided. See, one thing that I believe is that, I don't like to use this word, but you could say that a fool, I don't like to use that word, but a fool tries to fix the problem as he's in the problem. I don't like to use that word, but I'll just use it because I think it's kind of funny. A fool is like trying to fix all the problems in his life and trying to figure out, but the thing is that he's already gotten to a point where he's entangled himself in the problem so much, and he's trying to fix the problem while being entangled in the problem, and that's a recipe for disaster. If you're entangled consciously, quantumly, if you could say quantumly, I don't know anything about quantum physics, but people talk about quantum physics and consciousness and stuff. So I'll just say consciously. If your consciousness is entangled inside of the problem, and you're trying to fix the problem from the entanglement of the problem, don't you think that's like unwise? That makes no sense, right? I believe that what a wise person does is they avoid the problem to begin with. They have the right things in place. They have the right strategies, the right techniques. They have the right, and I'll just say it, they have the life force, and they have the consciousness and the awareness to make sure that make sure, and I didn't say to necessarily avoid problems. Notice that. I said to make sure that they stay safe in their space. That they stay safe in their space. I don't like to necessarily try to fix the problems in my life. You know what I like to do? I like to avoid the problems to begin with. That's what I like to do. I like to avoid the problems to begin with, where I don't even have to get to the point where I need to fix the problem because I avoided it to begin with. I think that's one of the most powerful things that you can do in your life, is avoid the problems to begin with. And so how do you do this? I might sound a little bit all over the place here, but I believe this is all necessary to help you break out of the matrix and play more of the conscious role that you desire in your life, and to not be an NPC. I don't like that communication because I think it's really egotistical, but I think it's a great communication style too. Like I don't know. Like think about it. Why is it really so far-fetched? Is it really so far-fetched that people can be NPCs? When you're dreaming at night, there's just stuff happening and you don't know what you are in a dream. Aren't you kind of an NPC when you're in a dream state? Unless you become a lucid dreamer, then you're no longer an NPC. But if you're just in a dream and then you wake up from the dream, were you not an NPC? And let's say in that dream there was conscious beings that were dreaming lucidly. You were an NPC in that person's lucid dream, were you not? Until you woke up from that and realized, whoa, what was all that about? I was like in a trance. That's what we're trying to avoid here. Because in a trance, many problems can happen. Being in a trance in of itself, you could see as a problem, at least from my state and the space that I'm in. Being in a trance, and by trance I mean unconscious hypnosis, where you're hypnotized and you could consciously program yourself to have an experience. But I'm talking about where you don't even know that you're dreaming, you don't know what's happening, it's just stuff happening on autopilot. That's what we're trying to avoid here. So to conclude this video, I want to ask you, it's going to sound kind of unrelated, but it's completely related, trust me. I mean, you don't have to trust me, but like, I mean, do whatever you want, but I'm saying that it's related. Do you believe that you have to live based on resistance? Is that your belief? Test 1, 2, 3. Is that your belief? Do you believe that you have to live based on resistance? You have to create a reality that's based on resistance. And your entire life has to be based on resistance. Do you have that belief? If you have that belief, you may be subscribing to programs that you don't want to be signed up for. And this video perhaps is planting a seed or making you more aware of the truth that you can unsubscribe. Like, you know, when you're on YouTube and you subscribe to people's channels and then they pop up on your feed, beliefs and programs are not so different. You subscribe to beliefs. The moment that you listen to somebody talking about a belief and then you agree with that, you're paying attention to that, you are subscribing to those beliefs. You're quite literally, and I'm being literally, this is not philosophy. This is not like, oh, that's an interesting topic that he's talking about, but let me just go back to my regular life. No, I'm giving you the actual truth of the situation here, which is that belief systems are subscriptions. They are subscriptions. You can subscribe to beliefs, and you can choose to not subscribe to perhaps some beliefs that somebody is presenting to you. Nothing wrong with that. No, thank you. One of the most powerful collection of words that you can use, no thanks. No thanks. Nothing personal, even if they take it personally, no thanks, just not for me. Nothing wrong with what you're doing, but it's just not for me, right? And when you become, or on the other hand, if you start to become more aware that perhaps you've been subscribed to something, that's more consciousness coming back to you, you can unsubscribe from beliefs that you were already subscribed to. Maybe you consciously subscribe to those beliefs at some point. You don't want to play victim and say, like, oh my gosh, this person's manipulating me. Just imagine as if, even if you did it consciously or unconsciously, imagine as if you chose to subscribe to that. Just take it like that. Because judgment and blaming and criticizing is not going to help you to unsubscribe from beliefs. It's going to make you entangled even further in them. So whether it is or isn't the case, you want to take it as if you subscribe to that belief. And when you have consciousness coming back to your system, unsubscribe. unsubscribe. When I start to reprogram my mind, I start to notice all these things that I was subscribed to previously. I don't know about you. And I'm just like, whoa, that's really interesting. Because it was like in my field, but I was entangled in it. So I didn't realize that it was something there. But the moment that I pull back and decide that I'm something else, then I have space and capacity to be like, whoa, that was me. I said that was me. And I don't take, and it's just interesting observation. I don't like to judge myself or to blame myself or judge others, because again, what that does is that is going to entangle you in some reality that perhaps you don't want. Perhaps you don't want, okay? So the question is, once again, do you believe that you have to live based on resistance? I'm proposing here that you do not have to live your life predicated upon the paradigm and belief that you need to be living in resistance all day and you have to be like in a dense energy. I'm not saying that there's not times and spaces to step into resistance if you believe that you have to honor some sort of previous belief or to honor something that's going to honor you and honor others. I'm not saying that stepping into resistance is even necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying, are you consciously navigating that space, and do you have conscious control over the way that you're living your life? If you do step into that, are you taking responsibility for every little decision you make in your life? Every time you step into resistance or somebody else's space or whatever, are you conscious of that process? Consciousness is the key. Awareness is 90% of this. So do you believe, because I'm proposing here that you don't have to create a life based on living in resistance. Non-resistance and alignment is something you can create for yourself. But I'll leave that for you to decide, and I'll conclude the video there. Once again, all the details to work with me are down below. As always, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.